Hi everybody, Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. Today I'm really honoured to have Jerry Ramp Adams, and we're going to be talking about her book, The Powerful Bomb That Fueled a Global Fight for Inclusion. So Jerry, thank you so much for coming on today. Where can people find you?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's really an honor to be here and to talk about something I'm super passionate about. You can find me on LinkedIn under Joey Ramp Adams. You can also find some of the social media pages on Twitter or X, as it is now, under Sampson_dog, which is my service dog. Sampson is quite famous, so if you Google him, he comes up on about 5
If you
pages.
Google
Or 6
Sampson
pages
the
of Google.
service dog, they will find you.
That is correct. Yes.
Yes.
We are
And that's
also
going
on
to be
Instagram.
part of what we're going to be talking about today, isn't it? In terms of the, you are famous for service dogs and talking about invisible disabilities.
That is correct. Yes, we're going to talk about service dogs in science laboratories, some of the barriers we faced, and also the invisible disabilities that led me to where I am.
So why don't you kick us off with? And I remember reading the first chapter of your book and having to put it down. So why don't you explain to us how you got to where you are today from an accident point of view?
Yes, in 2006, I was training a polo horse, and the horse spooked and slipped and fell down on a gravel road. And my head hit first, but then my body hit. A lot of bones were broken. The horse fell actually on top of me. I lost consciousness. I ended up with 23 broken bones and a traumatic brain injury. It took over 2 years of surgeries to repair. And then the most problematic, though, was the brain injury that developed into something that's called progressive cognitive decline. A lot of people think that a brain injury, they think of it as a stroke, which is like a baseline, and that's where you have to recover from. But closed head injuries sometimes develop broken neural pathways later, up to a year or 2 years later. And so almost 2 years after the accident, I lost the ability to understand speech, speak language, and a lot of cognitive impairments.
And I know the book is autobiographical in terms of the journey that you've been on. And I know that you realized that there hadn't really been any medical research into the condition that you had, so you decided to go back to school and
Yes.
start from scratch, so you could actually be the person that was going to find out about this.
Yeah, well, after my accident, no one could really explain to me what was happening in my own brain. I was misdiagnosed with just a whole assortment of different types of disabilities. To include, I was told that I had advanced stage Alzheimer's, and that in 3 months I would be institutionalized, and in 6 months I would be dead. So I didn't agree with that, but I didn't understand what was happening. So I made a very unlikely decision when I couldn't understand language, I couldn't speak language. I had a lot of physical disabilities. I had a service dog. I decided to go into a neuroscience program, which was the second hardest program in the University of Illinois. And I tried to study my own brain. I had a theory, because of my own experience, that there was something that happened after a closed brain injury that developed into something which is now called progressive cognitive decline, which didn't have a name back then. So that's what I wanted to study on a molecular and cellular level. But going into science with a service dog was unprecedented. And they didn't want to allow a service dog into a laboratory. And that's where the whole journey and story really to
Because
the
you went
dark.
back to school, because you ended up
Yes,
having to basically go. So you went to a school,
yes,
and you were the person with the service dog when there was, in effect, children at school, and you were learning, and you had to go right back to the beginning to basically learn science. And then what happened was that the only way that you could then do um, the qualifications was to do lab work, which meant that you had to take the dog into the lab.
correct. That is correct.
And then it all hell broke loose.
That's putting it almost mildly. Yes, I ended up. I had to start at a community college.
Hmm.
It had I had to learn again how to do basic adding and subtracting of fractions. I mean, I started at the most remedial level. I had to start at the basic no credit science course and work my way up. And then I went into the University of Illinois thinking that because well, let me back up just a smidge. When I was at the community college, I had my service dog, and we had to take lab courses, general chemistry, and things like that. But a service dog had never been in a lab, so we had to figure out how to make that safe. So we put the personal protective equipment on him. He had a lab coat, he had boots, he had goggles, and I worked with the lab manager, and it worked very successfully. So once I went into the university, I thought it would get easier, but it actually got much, much harder. And we faced a lot of barriers. And my education actually became secondary to my fight every semester just to get my service dog to my medical equipment to allow it allowed into a laboratory.
Yeah. So I don't want to give away the fight is a really good part of the book, and I don't want to give that, don't want any spoilers for, if people want to read it and read the book. I think it's good. Talk to us about service dogs.
Well, service dogs come in a variety of breeds, and they do a variety of, they help a lot of different types of disabilities. People often misunderstand or don't understand the level of training required for a service dog. Now, as a legitimate service dog, my first service dog, I self-trained. And then I've had Sampson.
And you did that because you actually had experience of training horses and that. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. And there was a long process to getting a service dog. And I knew I needed to go into school. I couldn't get a service dog at the time from an organization. So I made the decision to try and train my own service dog. And I was very fortunate to have Theo, who was, he was just a fantastic, fantastic service dog. Then when he retired, I got my next service dog from an organization, and that's Sampson. And Sampson became the ambassador for service dogs in science. He's kind of the face of that.
And if there's anybody watching and you want to see photos of Theo or Sampson, the service dog, especially Sampson in a lab coat, your Instagram is a great place to. I mean, they are so cute.
Thank you.
They are cute, turned up to 11.
Yes, they are very cute, but they're also very functional. I mean, they are the exact same personal protective equipment that I had to wear in a laboratory, and that keeps him safe. But that required some training. A service animal has to have, very specific training because they don't go seek attention. They are very focused on their handler. They are very trained to all types of different environmental stimuli. It's a very high level of training, and up to 2 years of training.
Because you would when you, I don't know if you still do, but you say in the book that you would get certain tics where you knew that you were going to have a difficulty dealing with a particular situation, and you'd start doing something with your hands, and basically the dog would then come and put their head in your lap, which was just basically a reminder to say you're doing it.
Yes,
you need to take control.
Right. I mean, my service dog did, well, he did balance and brace because I had trouble with balance after the brain injury. He would pick up items off the ground because I couldn't drop my head below my waist, or I might black out. But one of the biggest things he did was a medical alert for me. And yes, I would, when something would get a little crazy in my environment, my nervous system would notice it before I would consciously notice it. And I would start rubbing my hands in a certain way. And he would come and let me know. And what that does for me is it allows me to say, okay, something's wrong in my environment. I can look around and say, oh, well, they're just telling an animated joke and I'm okay and I can stay. Or I need to take a break. I need to go outside. I need to take medication, whatever it is, so that I can successfully and effectively continue to do my job or go about my life.
And also you do things like if you're in a situation, you feel for the heart rate of the dog, and that you use that as a way of calming down.
Yes. When I get into a very significant situation where it's for someone who has like post-traumatic stress, it's a triggering event.
Mm,
And oftentimes, or even during nightmares, I
mm,
have a lot of nightmares about, my past. And when I wake up or during those difficult times during the day, sometimes it's hard to my heart rate starts racing, my breathing gets I get close to a panic attack, or things just don't feel quite real. So one of the things that I can do is place my hands on around my service dog. I can feel his heartbeat. I can feel the way he's breathing, and that I can sync my own breathing and my own heart rate to his, which will calm down my nervous system. And it also reminds me what's real
mm,
in my environment, so
mm.
that I can and focus on him, and I can start to readjust my nervous system to can again to either remain in my environment or just to be safe and healthy.
So if I see someone with a service dog, what should I do?
Well, if you see someone with a service dog, you should not distract the dog. You should not talk directly to the dog. And I know people love dogs, and I'm a dog lover. My husband's a dog lover, and it's difficult. I understand that, but a service dog is working,
Mm,
and they need to stay very focused on their handler.
mm,
And even if you walk by and say, if you want to say that your dog is cute, talk directly to the handler instead of looking down at the dog and saying, "Oh, baby, you're so cute." Because what happens then is the dog will look at the person
yeah.
and they will take their focus off the handler.
Mm,
And for someone who's, say, a guide dog
mm,
who's leading someone who's blind or low vision, if the dog takes his focus off of what's in front of them, they may end up stepping into traffic. They may end up, falling, running into construction, anything, or the dog might miss a medical alert, something along that line. So the dog needs to remain very focused on the handler. So if you see a service dog team, talk directly to the handler if you would like, but don't distract, don't interact with the service dog.
because that's one of the pieces of advice that you say in the book that you give to a lot of people with service dogs, is that as soon as you have a service dog, actually as soon as you walk in the room, while you wish to walk in the room quietly, in fact you become the center of attention.
That's correct. Yes, and that's one of the biggest hurdles. When I speak, I work a lot with combat veterans
Mm,
who have post-traumatic stress or
yeah.
brain injuries, and in a lot of those situations, they do want to remain kind of invisible.
Mm,
But that once you get a service dog, you are never invisible. Every time you walk into any place, whether it's a restaurant or a social event, even a family party, the first thing people notice is that there is a dog in the room.
mm. And certainly don't feed it under the table.
Absolutely not. Do not ever feed a service dog anything. Yeah, that's in the book. That's a That's a big one for me. Don't feed the service dog.
Don't feed the service dog. No.
No.
And we've had a comment from Andrew. Andrew Slessor is watches a lot of these, and he says, "Good morning, afternoon. I just saw your dog, so he's probably just looked you up, and you deserve an honorary doctorate."
You know what? And I would love that if any university would want to do that. Yes, I've had several people say that, and I am still disappointed that I did not get to pursue my PhD in research, and I did everything that I needed to do. I graduated top of my class. I high distinction in research. I had a $50,000 research grant. I had a laboratory, and I was still blocked from moving forward.
Hmm.
That led me into advocacy, though, which
Yes.
is a blessing.
Hmm.
And I still would love to have my PhD. I get emails in all the time addressed to Dr. Ramp Adams, and I have to say, I apologize. I don't have a doctoral degree, but I think I have a PhD in life and law and disability advocacy.
Yes.
And science, but it's maybe someday.
So talk to us about the disability advocacy that you're doing, because in effect, the door that slammed in your face was actually another door opening, wasn't it?
It was. When I was in school, I used to call myself a reluctant advocate because every semester I had to go into and speak to whatever professors, faculty members, safety and compliance. It was a constant every semester fight and educational process. That's how I started public speaking, was people started asking me to come in and give short 15, 20-minute seminars on this topic. So I was a reluctant advocate. I just wanted to be a student. I just wanted to get my degree. However, once that door slammed shut, the moment that I was really faced with one of the worst situations with a professor, and I understood in that moment that my degree process was over.
Yeah.
I became an intentional advocate in that moment. And I do say, and I've always say, and I want people to understand that even though what I thought was my calling to become a neuroscience researcher ended, another door opened.
Yeah.
And in that door, we have been able to change policies, help other people. And I wouldn't change what I'm doing now even if I could go back.
Because I mean, you in a way, Joey and Sampson helped you start on a transformational journey, which was, and unfortunately, it's always the pioneers that get arrows in their hats, aren't they? So, but you were there at the cutting edge, the bleeding edge, and what you've done is that you've advocated and you've opened doors for so many people that were less advantaged, were more disadvantaged than you, but you've opened the doors for so many people.
We have, and I am very honored to be the voice of this demographic. I get emails from people who I've never met, who I don't know, who are thanking me because they have completed a degree. I have people who are currently working as doctors, as nurses, an EMT, who are working as pharmacy technicians, who are working in building airplanes, working in big, huge warehouses for big DoD contracts. These people wouldn't have the opportunity to do what they're doing if we hadn't opened the door.
Yeah.
It was a tough road, and I'm not going to sugarcoat that at all. And it still is. And I still get emails every day from someone who's facing some sort of barrier or adversity, but we are chipping it away. We are making headway. We're getting guidelines written. We're getting new policies written. And I'm finding a shift in conversations from absolutely not to how can we make this work.
And I think one of the things also that comes across in the book is your because you understand so much about the policy and the law in the US. People are sending you, this is the policy, and you go, well, that's wrong.
Yes, that is exactly right. That happens all the time. Someone will say, well, it says such and such and such and such. And I'm like, no, statute number such and such says, and you need to look this up. I just had a person who had a huge problem with a ride share. And I found myself firing an email with all kinds of statutes that I've memorized. But we're also working with the House of Representatives. We're working with Congress right now, trying to get some amendments to some major biosafety guidelines that have inadvertently, and they've admitted it was a mistake, that is excluding service animals. So we're trying to get that amended. It has been a definite process. I even go in testify in court cases now as an expert witness. So it's been a lifelong learning, but I've learned a whole lot about disability law.
Jerry, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book, Insistent. You are very insistent. The powerful bomb that fueled the global fight for inclusion. And we have to thank all of your service dogs like Sampson and people like that who still live on.
Yes.
They may not still be here physically, but they still live on social media and stuff. Where can people find you? The best place is to search for Sampson, the service dog.
Yes, our Twitter account, which is Sampson_dog. We have an Instagram account, which is, I believe, Sampson_service_dog. And also, we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, just Google us, we're there.
Okay, Jerry, thank you so much for coming on and sharing